Oh, hey there, scholars. This is Andrew Franklin, and this is a mini lecture dealing with digital citizenship. In this mini lecture, folks, I'll spend some time defining digital citizenship, and then from there, I'll segue into talking about the various digital divides that exist. As I talk about the various digital divides that exist, I'll highlight the divides as they're displayed across gender. I'll also highlight the divides that are displayed across individuals that are differently abled. And then finally, I'll highlight the divides as they exist across individuals' skill level. After this discussion, I'll segue into talking about dating websites in general and how they're being used, given the proliferation of dating websites that are out there. And I'll spend some time talking about illegitimate claims that many of these dating websites put forth as it relates to advanced matching algorithms. And I'll spend time talking about one particular unethical study that a dating website engaged in that really highlights a lot of unethical practices that should be avoided. Finally, I'll wrap up this presentation by talking about netiquette in the context of hacking and cyberbullying, given that it's germane to digital citizenship. Digital citizenship refers to the responsible use of technology by anyone who uses computers, the internet, and digital devices to engage with society on any level. Given how prominent posting, tweeting, and blogging are due to technological advances, this has brought a new age of digital citizenship. When examining the digital citizens, most researchers found the presence of two cohorts. One cohort is the digital natives, and these are technology users that had the internet technologies as part of their development. And then you got digital immigrants, whom are individuals who adopted these technologies later in life. Now, it's said that sometimes digital immigrants retain their accent and that the internet is not their first choice for gathering information, whereas for digital natives, consuming digitized information is second nature. Both of these cohorts have varying views on responsibilities to decrease inequity of access to computers and the internet, with some being interested in open borders. The digital divide refers to the creation of social inequalities relative to access of the internet. In short, the benefits of the internet, for example, access to information, education, entertainment, healthcare, and government services, do not benefit everyone equally given the different patterns of media usage. For individuals, digital disparities often exist among persons with lower incomes, lower educational levels, disabilities, ethnic minorities, and women. O'Hara and Stevens argue that the disparities among groups involving access to digital technologies are tied closely to economic inequality. Many developed and developing countries have initiated national information infrastructure policies to bridge the divide so that all citizens have appropriate access to digital technologies. Some uses of technology are considered capital enhancing, for example, internet usage to improve education, career, and health, and others are simply entertaining, for example, video games, recreational surfing, and online gambling. A meta analysis conducted by Daniels in 2013 highlights how race and racism manifest in a number of ways in terms of access and usage of the internet. Some research suggests that ethnic and racial differences in the use of digital technologies persist even after controlling for socioeconomic status. A lot of research highlights how racial majorities, for example, white or Asian Americans, use digital technologies for capital enhancement, while historically marginalized communities may use these technologies primarily for entertainment purposes. Gender is connected to the digital divide in that women tend to use digital technologies for smaller amounts of time when compared to men. In some developing countries, researchers have found that the gender gap in accessibility is related to gender inequalities in education, employment, and health. An underlying factor that may be related to the gender divide is the role of culture. Some cultures, through their institutions, promote gender stereotypes of school subjects that impact self confidence and provide limited access to computer training based on gender. The internet provides a wealth of opportunities for access to information and services for people with disabilities. Unfortunately, the use of the internet by individuals with disabilities tends to be much lower than the use of these technologies by persons in the general population. A Pew Research Center report stated that the amount of internet usage among Americans with disabilities was 54% compared to 81% of the general population. Many researchers believe this disability divide is related to lower socioeconomic status, limited financial resources, and dependence on others. There are many ways in which the digital divide can be conceptualized. It can be viewed in terms of intranational and international divides, economic, dependency, as well as interdependency. Some point to the fact that there is an unequal distribution of information and power due to inequitable access. From a moral philosophical approach, there is no definitive consensus on the issue. Some researchers, such as Tabani in 2011, argue that there is not really a divide, but that the internet should be viewed as a luxury item, which some people may have access to and others may not. Some researchers go beyond the bifurcation of the haves and the have-nots and instead believe that there is a second digital divide that involves individuals that have the knowledge, skills, and abilities to navigate the internet and individuals who do not and get lost in the labyrinth of internet technologies. Given these expanding understandings of the digital divide, scholars are increasingly evaluating the sociocultural context of users of digital technologies in their studies of the digital divide. Some researchers believe that it is not an obligation of people to bridge the digital divide. Though it would be a good thing to do, supererogatory, it is not necessarily an obligation to do so. These ethicists would argue that if one fails to do something that is an obligation, then that should be anathema. On the other hand, supererogatory acts should not receive denunciation. Others push against this idea and proffer that there is moral support for bridging the digital divide in just about all classically theistic religions, our ordinary institutions, and classical ethical theories. In proposing a conceptualization of the digital divide, Floridi has proposed horizontal and vertical digital divides. The vertical digital divide is a temporal one that distinguishes the current digital information era from past generations. The horizontal digital divide involves persons that are segregated, that is, separated spatially, and sometimes self segregated as netizens that are both technologically proficient and technologically active. He believes that the time and space barriers disempower, discriminate, and generate dependency. Floridi's introduction of the infosphere to ethical discussion of technologically advanced societies reintroduces value into the non physical aspects of our existences because he believes that reality in our current digital era should be conceptualized as both physical, biosphere, and digital infosphere entities. Floridi believes that there is a need to launch an open debate on the impacts of the computational era on public spaces, politics, and societal expectations, which ultimately should lead toward policy making. Many believe that the arrival of mobile internet will shrink the digital divide and the fissure between information haves and have nots will not continue to exist. Online dating websites are an increasingly prevalent way for many individuals to seek out potential romantic partners. Across demographics, attitudes toward online dating is becoming increasingly positive, and this has not gone unnoticed by companies seeking to capitalize on the interest. In 2013, there were more than 2,500 online dating services and 8,000 sites worldwide that allow people to find romantic partners along racial, religious, and immigrant experience preferences. Analysis of the dating sites from the psychological science perspective wonders if the rise in potential partners may lead to commoditization of potential partners, and that communication that occurs on these platforms may foster unrealistic expectations for partners in real life. One of the greatest contentions of the authors of Psychological Science in the Public Interest Report is the lack of empirical support for claims of internet matching companies that they had advanced science matching algorithms. Many companies point to the credentials of their researchers, the successful marriages, and the published results. The credentials simply mean that they can perform rigorous assessments, and it does not necessarily mean that they have done assessments. Those service providers that have attempted large scale studies of their user base have done so in a way that raises concerns because these studies were performed without the users realizing that they were being experimented upon. Furthermore, claims that companies have a scientifically proven matching system has been disparaged by Advertising Standards Authority, and ASA has done this in the interest that scientifically proven wording should be held to a higher standard. OkCupid has conducted 3 studies in which they explored how users' communication with prospective partners would change based on the elimination of profile photos for a time period. They eliminated background information below the profile photo and relayed inaccurate information to the user about match rates. OkCupid found that individuals conversed more with potential partners when profile photos were missing, and there was a higher likelihood of an ongoing conversation occurring if the users were told that they have a 90% match rate with a prospective partner, even though the match rate was likely 30% or lower. These studies conducted and published by OkCupid raised a number of ethical concerns. Users were not given an opportunity to provide informed consent. Users were unaware of the procedures that would be utilized. Users were not informed of potential risks and benefits, and the users were not debriefed at the end. Debriefing is not satisfied through the publication of peer reviewed publications, given that the general public usually does not read them, and there is no guarantee that the users will read them. Part of the issue with ethics in large companies is that it's not required for research to be reviewed by the Institutional Review Board that has the conservatism of a modern day university. For those companies that do have internal review boards, again, they may not be on par with what's found in the academy. And then user agreements are seldomly read by, and thus is a shallow rejoinder for the person arguing that using big data by making it public or conducting research. An important issue that has developed for digital citizenship or those immersed in the world of the internet or some virtual community is how should a person act toward others online? This is a matter of immense importance given that some people act online in a manner that is far different from how they act when they are physically in another's presence. For example, how should hacktivism be addressed by ethics? Many are able to argue for and against hacktivism, which makes straightforward ethical considerations problematic. Many engage in hacktivism in the pursuit of justice just to encounter issues with privacy. If devices in the internet are extended forms of our beings from a cognitive standpoint, then some have argued that hacking a device is tantamount to a full body or personal assault, given how dependent someone's existence may be on the tech. Finally, cyberbullying, or intentional acts or behaviors repeatedly carried out over time against the victim by an individual or group using digital technologies, I know that's a mouthful, is a real problem with high prevalence rates in certain samples. Deontological approaches have been tried in schools, but it's difficult for many to pinpoint the duties of a digital citizen. Utilitarian approaches have been tried, but these often fall on deaf ears as some students continue to innocently cyberbully because they do not realize the consequences. Some have advocated that approaches draw on virtue ethics and interventions that help users make good and wise online judgments. All of these approaches may be needed to promote a safe digital space for us all.